The movie opens by setting the scene in a world that is grappling with a unique and alarming phenomenon. Children who possess telepathic abilities, coupled with a tendency for violence, are causing widespread chaos and fear. This alarming situation has left people across the globe struggling to find ways to manage and understand these extraordinary children. In the midst of this global crisis, the story focuses on one particular child, Stephanie, the central character of the narrative. Stephanie finds herself living in isolation, her parents having departed in a desperate search for a cure to help their daughter. Left to live for herself in the family home, the movie captures the simplicity and solitude of her daily life. Scenes of Stephanie engaging in ordinary activities like making a smoothie or playing the piano fill the screen, offering a glimpse into her lonely world. One day, while Stephanie is busy preparing a smoothie, she is startled by a mysterious noise. Turning off the blender, she investigates the source of the sound and discovers a ball that seems to have been deliberately dropped from the second floor of the house, as if an unseen playmate is seeking her attention. Stephanie pleads with this unseen presence to stop before returning to her kitchen where she seeks comfort in her beloved turtle toy. The story emotionally portrays Stephanie's enduring connection to her absent parents. In a touching scene, she prepares dinner for four, a place for herself, one for each of her parents, and one for her toy, symbolizing her hope and longing for their return. The evening progresses with Stephanie indulging in playful activities, including a bath, before the routine task of brushing her teeth is interrupted by a sudden and frightening power outage. As night falls, Stephanie prepares for bed, reading a story to her turtle toy in a tender display of her need for companionship and normalcy in her isolated world. The next morning unfolds with more solitary playtime with her toy. A game of hide-and-seek leads her to a makeshift tent, where she seeks a family album. Suddenly, a loud knock on the door interrupts the peace, sending Stephanie into a state of fear. She stops her sound as a monstrous creature appears to enter the house, its terrifying sounds drawing nearer to her hiding spot. Despite her palpable fear, Stephanie exhibits a remarkable sense of awareness and composure, understanding that remaining calm and silent is her best defense. After a tense moment, her strategy proves successful and the noises cease, leaving her unharmed but undoubtedly shaken. In the tense aftermath of the creature's visit, the scene shows Stephanie emerging cautiously from her hiding spot. She carefully shuts the door behind her and scouts the area, instinctively feeling that the monster has retreated to the woods outside. This brief encounter with the unknown leaves her unsettled yet determined to protect her only companion, the turtle toy. Seeking comfort, Stephanie turns to the turtle, speaking to it as though it were a living friend. She advises it to remain calm and avoid thinking evil thoughts, especially if the monster returns. Stephanie understands that the creature is particularly agitated by noise, and she shares her suspicions about its possible dwelling place with her toy, creating a narrative to make sense of the frightening events. The peace of their home is shattered again when the monster makes another appearance, this time heading upstairs. In a frantic attempt to hide, Stephanie ducks into a room and inadvertently steps on a pumpkin. In a moment of quick thinking, she throws the pumpkin out the window, apologizing to the lifeless body of her brother lying in the room. In a chilling twist as she holds his hand, it seems to squeeze hers. Amidst this unsettling environment, Stephanie occasionally glimpses the outside world through various news channels. Reports detail a global crisis where children with extraordinary powers are causing trouble, yet Stephanie remains disinterested. As night descends, a disturbing sound draws Stephanie to a window. Investigating, she is horrified to find a trail of blood inside the house. Following the gruesome trail, she discovers her pet rabbit severely injured. In a fit of rage and grief, she lashes out at her dead brother, blaming him for not protecting them and striking his body repeatedly with a baseball bat. The climax of this scene is marked by the unveiling of her brother's decomposing corpse, a sight that provokes Stephanie to scream in terror, encapsulating the depth of her isolation and despair in this haunted existence. In the stillness of the night, a sudden sound jolts Stephanie from her sleep. She emerges from her tent to investigate and notices the front door standing open, a trail of rainwater on the floor hinting at a recent visitor. This presence in the house feels different, more real and less menacing than the lurking monster she has grown accustomed to fearing. With her heart racing, Stephanie seeks refuge in the bathroom as she hears footsteps approaching. The tension mounts until she discovers, to her relief and joy, that her parents have returned. The long stretch of solitude and fear is broken. Stephanie is no longer alone. The next morning brings a moment of painful self-awareness for Stephanie. As her mother changes her clothes, Stephanie glimpses scars on her skin, scars she knows she caused. Pretending to be asleep, she grapples with a deep sense of guilt and remorse. Meanwhile, she observes her father busying himself with building a fence around their house, a protective measure to safeguard their family from unknown threats and possibly from Stephanie's own unpredictable powers. In a search for closure, Stephanie seeks out her dead brother, heading to his room only to find it empty and tidied up. She later discovers that her parents had buried him near their house, a decision made without her knowledge. Driven by a mix of curiosity and longing, Stephanie ventures outside to locate her brother's grave. Upon finding it, she attempts to dig up his remains, but her parents' calls interrupt her. Back home, Stephanie, struggling with the loss and changes in her family, confronts her parents about removing her brother from the house without telling her. She expresses a wish for him to have remained in his bedroom, an idea that reveals her struggle to process his death and the changes in her life. During breakfast the following day, Stephanie bravely asks why she was left alone. Her mother, weighed down by guilt and sorrow, explains that it wasn't their choice and confesses they believed Stephanie had been killed by the monster. Stephanie, in a chilling revelation, informs her mother that the monster lurks in the trees outside their house at night, a statement that hints at the ongoing and unresolved threat that continues to loom over their fragile, reconstructed family life. The already tense atmosphere in Stephanie's household takes a shocking turn when her brother's dead body is unexpectedly hurled through the window. This horrifying event deeply distresses her parents, who had only recently buried their son. In stark contrast to their anguish, Stephanie remains unaffected by this gruesome occurrence. Curious, she inquires if the monster is responsible for returning her brother's body. Her father confirms her suspicions but admits his confusion over the monster's motives. Stephanie suggests fleeing their home to escape the monster's reach, but her dad informs her that leaving would be fruitless, as the monster could still pursue them. In a quiet moment, Stephanie sneaks into her mother's office. There, she discovers clippings on the wall about children around the world, like her, who are committing terrible crimes. As she sifts through her mother's research, she finds books and photos focused on the human brain, hinting that her mother is exploring brain surgery as a potential solution. While hidden under the table, Stephanie witnesses her mother enter the office, lose her composure, and break down in tears, revealing the weight of the crisis they are facing. Later, while Stephanie bathes, she questions her father about why they abandoned her. He admits their fear but offers no further explanation. He also discusses Stephanie's apparent telekinetic abilities, suggesting that she might learn to control her emotions and, by extension, her powers. Stephanie's eavesdropping on her parents' conversation reveals their differing views on how to address her abilities. Her father believes in her potential to master her powers, having discussed it with her earlier. However, her mother, despite being a doctor but not a neurosurgeon, considers brain surgery as a desperate measure, highlighting the family's dire situation and the lack of viable solutions. The night brings no respite for Stephanie, who is plagued by a terrifying nightmare. Upon waking, she seeks out her parents and is eventually comforted by them, a scene that underscores the family's hardship but enduring bond amidst the extraordinary and terrifying circumstances they face. In the midst of this harrowing incident, the situation in Stephanie's home escalates dramatically. Without warning, the door bursts open and her father is violently flung aside as though an unseen force has taken hold of him and tossed him away. In a desperate bid for safety, Stephanie's mother scoops her up and they rush to hide in another room. As they huddle together, a chilling voice from the monster echoes closer, instilling fear and uncertainty. Yet, as they remain calm and silent, the monster appears to vanish, offering a temporary break from the immediate danger. Venturing cautiously from their hiding place, Stephanie's mother checks the surroundings, believing the threat has passed. But just as Stephanie prepares to follow her, a horrific turn of events unfolds. Her mother is suddenly hurled away by an invisible force. In a state of panic, Stephanie frantically searches for an escape and ends up jumping out the window, injuring herself in the process. As her parents try to follow, they too are impeded by the same invisible force. It becomes evident that Stephanie's telekinetic powers manifest as enormous, unseen tentacles, overpowering and unstoppable. In a desperate measure, her mother uses a drug to render Stephanie unconscious, while confessing a heartbreaking truth. Stephanie is the monster responsible for the chaos. When a new day dawns, the family engages in a grave conversation. Stephanie's parents reveal the frightening reality that she possesses an inner violence, and that she herself is the true monster. They recount the tragic fate of her brother, explaining how he died due to her uncontrollable anger and telekinetic tentacles. As these memories resurface, Stephanie collapses into unconsciousness, overwhelmed by the realization of her actions. Seizing this moment, her parents decide to perform brain surgery on Stephanie, a desperate attempt to save her from her own powers. However, as they prepare for the operation, Stephanie awakens and, in a fit of panic and confusion, demolishes the lab. The news then reveals a grim development. Surgeries intended to cure children like Stephanie have resulted in disaster, with many doctors and medical practitioners killed in the process. This devastating news extinguishes the last flicker of hope to stop the outbreak, leaving mercy killing as the seemingly only remaining course of action in this dire and tragic situation. In a desperate and tragic turn of events, Stephanie's parents resort to a harrowing plan. They poison hot chocolate, intending to give it to Stephanie as a lethal remedy to the chaos she's causing. The father, carrying this heavy burden, takes Stephanie for a walk outside, wandering into the nearby farm. During this somber walk, Stephanie, grappling with guilt and sadness, apologizes to her father for the pain she's caused. Her father, with a heart heavy with sorrow, offers her the poisoned hot chocolate. But in an instinctive display of self-preservation, Stephanie's telekinesis causes the cup to be knocked from her hand. A tense moment follows, with Stephanie's gaze hardening as if she's on the verge of harming her father. In response, her father discreetly reaches for the gun he's concealed on his person. Despite Stephanie's assurance that she can control her powers, her actions soon betray her words. She lunges to attack her father, who, in a moment of sheer desperation, shoots her multiple times, believing he has killed her. Distraught and filled with guilt, the father returns home, convinced that he has successfully ended his daughter's life. He prepares to bury Stephanie, but as he's about to leave, a horrifying sight greets him. Stephanie stands at the gate, unharmed, and slowly makes her way towards the house. Once inside, she unleashes a terrifying onslaught, attacking her father and then pursuing her mother. Using her telekinetic powers, she inflicts grave injuries, stabbing her father and breaking her mother's bones. In a final devastating act, Stephanie uses her telekinesis to destroy their home. She then steps outside, holding her turtle toy, and drags her parents' lifeless bodies to her brother's grave. In a symbolic gesture of severing ties with her past, she drops and crushes the turtle toy underfoot. The scene expands to show Stephanie destroying the surrounding houses. The movie concludes on a chilling note, revealing that children like Stephanie are causing worldwide destruction. The harrowing reality is that no force has been able to stop them, leaving a world in fear and uncertainty as these powerful and uncontrollable children continue to drive demolition. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next one. Fear awaits you.